Hi, community. It's Selena
and Marissa.
And we are back with another season of Just Look Vlog.
Yay!
Today we are talking about one of my favorite topics, healing and atonement.
Yes. Healing.
Ooh, na.
Okay, it's just, we're ready for it.
Let it come upon you. Okay, so we want to look up the definitions of healing and atonement because we're super literal people. So I definitely like to be like, okay, what am I really talking about right now?
And we really want to have a good understanding of what healing means and a good understanding of what atonement means, because we can't have the one without the other. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to kind of focus in on why that is and how that is. So back to you with the definition.
Yes. Okay, so healing. Noun, the process of making or becoming sound or healthy again.
Huge, right? Like literally huge. The whole being healthy part for me, right? Mm-hmm. And again, because I know that there is a point in time where our ancestors had that health and wellness. And I think that's part of why we saw these great inventions and these great, like the pyramids and all that other shit. Because we were healed and healthy and whole, right? At that point, so we were able to transcend to our highest intelligence. And I think that in society today, there's that whole hustle culture where we're too busy. We're too busy to not only to heal, to even acknowledge that we need to heal. To like, I think as a society, we've gotten to the point where now we're acknowledging, okay, we need to heal. And that's why mental health is kind of becoming on the forefront.
And self-care.
Yeah, and self-care and all that. But we haven't gotten to that next step of, okay, we need to prioritize healing. Because if we don't, the mental health crisis and the communal trauma that we all experience is going to become debilitating. Yeah.
Well, we already has become debilitating.
I was going to say, we already see that it's become debilitating in the fact that we have these increased mass shootings that are happening even more and more. It's like
it's like a quarter of a thing now. It's really crazy. It's increased violence everywhere. We're
senseless violence.
Constantly desensitized, especially, and not just Black people either, right? So I'm always like about the full context. So not only are we constantly seeing people who look like us die, but so is everybody else, and we're being desensitized to it. Well, they're being desensitized, and we're being re-traumatized every single time. So we're going further and further into trauma, and our environment is caring less and less and less about these really extreme conditions that we live in,
and also becoming more and more chaotic. Because even aside from the racial trauma, we are living in a pandemic now, have been for over a year. Like everything on top of it has been more and more debilitating.
This panorama has been
to folks' mental health, and we're really, I honestly think we're going to start to see this more if we do not prioritize healing
and holistic healing, like healing of people's minds, their bodies, their emotion. Like there's really, again, like going back to healing and what are we healing for when it comes to the traumas and the oppression that our people face. It, like I said, people are desensitized to it. It is trivialized, the things that our community has gone through. We've never even fully acknowledged, like first of all, we don't even know the depths of torture that our ancestors really went through during it's
right? But you know what does know?
But what we do know,
our bodies know.
Yeah, our bodies sure know. Absolutely. It's in our blood. That's science. So we know that, right? But we don't talk about it as a society. We're not dealing with our community. The world isn't dealing with our community like we've been through the things that we've been through.
It's true. Like there is that context, and we know there's that context, but we're not operating as if we know there's that context.
And for me, that's a huge block to healing. And that's why it's extremely important that whenever we're dealing with our community, we're dealing with our community like they are the people who have not only experienced this trauma, but remained resilient through it, created beauty through it. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Just holding space for all that we are and all that we've been through and all that our people are capable of is a lot. And we've not really begun to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like literally, we know what the steps to healing are, right? There's that acknowledgement that we need to heal, and then what do we need to heal from, and then how can we heal? we're just still to the point of like just acknowledging that we need to heal. We've just scratched the surface of acknowledging why we need to heal.
And then, sorry, just wanting to throw in, because whenever we think about healing, and I'm like, what are barriers to healing? Shame and blame. Those two coming up hand in hand are always there. Whenever one of the very hard conversations, because it's gonna take a lot of hard conversations as a part of this healing.
I think that's been a barrier through history. If you think about how even just the whole notion of talking to a therapist is so, it's just like the word is right there for it. I can't think of it, what the word is, but it's just become something that it really is. It's just become something that it's taboo, basically. The notion of, oh, you need therapy, there's definitely something wrong with you. But there's something wrong with all of us.
Or people would be like, go to therapy, and it's like, yeah, I'm on my way. Like, are you going?
Like, in the society that we are in breeds the mental health crisis that we're in right now. We have the hoarding of wealth and resources. We have a terrible healthcare system here. And then the pandemic, there's mass poverty, like all of this. And
all you're supposed to do is grind, work harder, stack money,
get the side hustle,
that's going to be the solution to it all.
LLC,
right?
You know, and whatnot. But it's like, but we can't. Like, we have to prioritize healing, or we won't get to that next step of actually healing.
Yes, and so now I want to talk about atonement, because I feel like healing and atonement really do go hand in hand. Like, there's shame and blame, but the answer to that is healing and atonement. Because, like, when it comes to that, some people are responsible for some things. Like, when something bad happens, someone or something is to blame. And so we need to we know what that is. We know, because the systems that are responsible have said we are responsible and we have done this thing. Where there's been the disconnect is, here's what we're going to do to atone for that thing. Okay, and for me, it always comes back to capital, but we will round back to that. Let's talk about the definition of atonement. So atonement, also a noun, it says reparation. Atonement says reparation for a wrong or injury.
Yes, okay, so the wrong, let's talk about it. Colonialism, transatlantic Jim
Crow, school to prison pipeline,
all of it, right?
The medical industry and what they've done to our people.
Police brutality, all of it. We know there has been several press releases, articles of the U.S. government and colonial forces admitting to the debauchery, basically. Like, literally, I'm admitting to these atrocious acts against the community. And now they're still doing it.
And now they're just doing it with having admitted to doing it.
Right, exactly. They've admitted to doing it. They're continuing to do it on a larger scale. And also now not just doing it to the Black community. Like, at this point, basically anybody can get it. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So, but still, to the most highest degree, there's that anti-Blackness, so that's always there.
That everyone else is benefiting from.
Right. So how can we get to the point of true healing without having reached that step of atonement? We can't, right? We know it. So now that the U.S. government and these colonial forces have come out and admitted to the systemic racism and the systemic oppression and the systemic genocide and the systemic go on, now we need to get to a point where, first of all, it needs to stop, because the oppression ain't stopped yet. We know slavery has just transformed to the prison industrial system. Like, we know this. So we're not even to a point where we're kind of ahead of ourselves in even saying we need to heal, if you think about it, as a society. Because
we ain't atoned from nothing.
There's been no atonement. And that is a very crucial step to healing. It's just like, say, I hit you. Smack. I hit you. Now you're hurt. You're sad, you're crying because I done rocked you a little hard.
Okay.
How can you heal from that until I come and I say, Selena, oh my God, I hit you and that was not okay. And I'm sorry that I hit you. How can I make it better?
Right, and you might do some things to heal yourself, right? You
Right,
might get your
exactly.
Band-Aid, you might do some things on your own. But if the parties involved with the hurt have not come and been involved with the atonement, and that's what it is for me, right? So back to the Capitol and how this ties into atonement. For me, when Black people, when our ancestors were stolen and kidnapped and brought to a new land and made into capital, that's when capital has entered the chat. Right? So now how do we atone? Capital, baby. I'm talking checks, right? I'm talking property. I'm talking deeds.
Titles.
I'm talking titles. The parties involved with
LLCs.
making aware African Americans were turned into capital are the same parties that need to be involved with returning capital to the African American community.
Absolutely.
Capital.
And then, so yeah, that's how we reach our healing, right? We need atonement. We need atonement from the U.S. government. We need atonement from colonial forces. We need atonement from folks that uphold this system, because we can talk about systemic racism and the injustices and police brutality until we're blue in the face. But the thing is, this is not the chupacabra. This is not something that doesn't exist. There are actual people that are behind these systems.
Right, there's
that
more
are
than just a blurry
it.
picture of it.
Right, exactly. There are actual folks. Like, we see the wealth breakdown. Right, exactly. So, yes, accountability, which will lead to that atonement, which leads to the real, healing. True healing that we can all reach as a community. And I'm not just talking about Black people and brown people. As a whole community,
literally everybody, again.
We all can reach this healing through the steps of atonement.
Because when it comes to anti-Blackness, we're all involved, right? So let's all heal.
Exactly.
And that's what I have
be
to
involved
say
in the
about
healing.
that.
Healing and atonement, all 2K forever, y'all.
We'll see y'all next time. Thanks for joining us.